Good morning, good devach. Hope you had a wonderful Shabbos. Today we are learning Perek Vav about Metzia, and we are finishing by Metzia this week. Hopefully by Friday. Today's shiur is Nishmas Aaron Nachman Simcha Koiner Shomer Hashem Sabrach Sabash B'Olei B'Yom Hamash Ben Yosef. May the Neshama have an aliyah and before Shema for Yisrael Baruch Olei Ruach Bas Pesach Zelda Ruach Olei and B'Siyar Bracha. I'm Yisrael Risha Chayim Mr. Bela Forced them B'Tzoch Shar Chali Yisrael. And shout out to our good friends at the Imperial Advisory Group for the sponsorship of this month. If you or your company need help with CFO stuff, please reach out to them. They're CFOs on demand, fractional CFOs exactly, and reach out to them at imperialgrp.com. Okay, here we go. Perek Vav Mishnah Aleph. We're going to talk today about the halachas of hiring workers and animals and the conflicts that can arise between them. If someone hired craftsmen to work for him, and one of them deceived the others about conditions of the job, meaning that, for example, the employer appointed a craftsman as an agent to hire others for a rate of 4 dinars a day, and the agent went and hired others for 3 dinars a day. So he took commission off of the workers. Other craftsmen can have nothing but complaints against the agent since they agreed to do the job for the lower wage. They have no legal claim to the extra dinar, although they may have complaints against the agent but not telling them that the employer was willing to pay a higher wage. So you agreed to work for 3 dinars a day. It's like saying like the agent is authorized to hire for $25 an hour. And he goes and he gets workers to work for $20 an hour, and he's putting $5 of that 25 into his pocket for finding the workers. And because the workers agreed to $20 an hour, they can't have any tightness against the company for the 25 because they agreed to the 20. Sachar es hachamar es hachamar es hakadar lahavi piperin. Someone hired a donkey driver or a wagon driver to deliver smooth pieces of wood to make a bridal chair. V'chalilim lakala all the mace, or to deliver flutes to play music for a bride, at, for chazan kala at the wedding, or to play mournful music for the dead at the funeral. Or he hired workers to lift his flax out of the water in which it was still soaking. Or to do anything that would cause him a loss if it was not done by a certain time. And the drivers or workers changed their minds and refused to do the job. In all of these cases, Adam, in the place where the employer could find no one else to do the job at the same price, um, and charge the difference to the original workers. Oh, Matan, or he may trick the original workers into doing the job. You could offer to pay them more. Once you do the job, you need to pay them only the original amount that was agreed upon. Okay, let's the base. If someone hired craftsmen to do a job, and they started the job but then changed their minds and refused to complete it, the craftsmen have the lower hand with regard to their wages. We make a cheshbon as to we calculate the wages for the work they completed in a way that favors the employer and not the workers. In Bala bias closer, but if, however, the employer changes his mind and fired the workers in the middle of the job, you gotta do out of turn, and then the employer has the lower hand. The wages are calculated in a way that favors the workers and not the employer. Call Hamishana, any craftsman that deviates from the instructions given to him, he was given wool and told to dye it red, but instead he dyed it black. Yado al tachtona, he has the lower hand when he collects payment for his work, but his pay is calculated in a way that favors the employer. I mean, if you're doing something that the employer did not tell you to do, he told you to do A, you did B, then that's your problem, not his. And anyone who goes back on his word during a sale has the lower hand. If two people are involved in the sale of a piece of land, the one that backs out after part of the money is paid, the one who backed out has the lower hand with regard to working out the details. Mishnah Gimel. Hasocher. I'm talking about renting out animals now. Hasocher Shomer lahalicha bahar balicha bibika. Someone rents a dali bibika balicha bahar, or he agrees to do eser milim, even if there's path on the eser milim, and that path in the valley is also 10 miles long, and the renter did not take the donkey any further than he agreed to take it. And if the donkey dies on the way for no known reason, the renter is obligated to pay for it. Because the reason is because air in a mountain is different from air in a valley, and the owner can claim that the renter caused the donkey's death by bringing it to an environment that was not used to. The air is much thinner up in the mountains. Because someone rents a donkey and becomes blind, or is temporarily seized for the king's service. If the renter demands a replacement, the owner can say to him, "Your animal is here before you. The donkey that I gave you can still be used to some extent. Therefore, I do not have to replace it." Mesa or Nishbra. However, if the donkey died or broke a limb and cannot perform work at all, the owner must provide the renter with any donkey with a donkey for the rest of the term of the rental, or return the money from the rental. Someone rents a donkey and agrees to lead it on the mountain instead of leads it in the valley. Then the halacha is if the donkey slipped and died, the renter is punished from paying for it. Even though he did not obey the owner's instructions, his death cannot be considered the renter's fault, because if he had taken it on a mountain as agreed, it would have been even more likely to slip due to the mountain's steepness. But however, if the animal was affected by the heat of the valley and died, the renter is chayav to pay. Is going to pay for it. In this case, he's responsible for the animal's death. But if he had to keep the agreement and take it on a mountain where the air is cooler, it would not have died from the heat. The person rents a donkey and agrees to lead it in a valley, but instead leads it on a mountain. If it slipped on the mountain and died, the renter is chayav to pay for it. But if he had kept to the agreement and taken it in a valley, it would not have slipped. But if it died because it was affected by the heat on the mountain, the renter is pater. In this case, he is not responsible for its death, because if he had taken it to a valley as agreed, it would have been more likely to die from the heat. However, if the donkey became overheated and died to pay because he caused its death by leading it up the mountain. Mishnah Dalet. If someone rents a cow and a plow and agrees with the owner that he will use it to plow on a mountain, but instead he plows in a valley, if the plow beam breaks while he's plowing, he is put to pay for it. Even though he did not obey the owner's instructions, the damage cannot be considered his fault, since if he had kept to the agreement and plowed on a mountain where the ground is hard and rocky, the plow would have been even more likely to break. However, if the renter agrees if the plow beam breaks while he is plowing, he is going to pay for it. Because his negligence caused the damage. Since if he had kept to the agreement and plowed in the valley where the ground is soft, the plow would probably not have broken. Similarly, Ladus Bekinius Dash Betwil Pater. The person rents a cow and agrees that he will use it to thresh beans, but instead he threshes grain. If the cow slips while threshing and is hurt, he is punished from paying for the damages. Had he kept to the agreement and threshed beans, which are more slippery than grain, the cow would have been even more likely to slip. The injury cannot be considered the renter's fault. However, if he agrees to thresh grain but instead threshes beans, if the cow slips and is hurt, he is chayav to pay for its injury. Because beans are more slippery than grain, and the animal would probably not have been injured if the renter had kept to the agreement and threshed grain. Mishnah Hey, a socher es a chamor lahavi aleh chitim. If someone rents a donkey and agrees that he will carry a certain amount of wheat on it, a heavy aleh sorim, but instead he carries barley on it, and because barley is lighter than wheat, he adds more to the load, even though the larger load of barley weighs the same as a small load of wheat would have weighed. If the donkey becomes injured, chayiv, the renter is chayiv to pay for the damage. Tefua, similarly, if he agreed to carry a certain amount of grain on the donkey, but instead he carries straw on it, and because straw is lighter than grain, he adds to the load, even though the larger load of straw weighs the same as the grain would have weighed. The donkey becomes injured, chayiv, and the renter is chayiv to pay for the damage. In both these cases, the renter must pay because even though he did not add to the weight of the load, the extra volume is hard for a donkey to bear and likely caused its injury. The havi lesach chitim, the person rents a donkey and agrees to carry a lesach, a wheat on it. Behavi lesach sarim, instead he carries a lesach of barley on it. The donkey is injured. But, if he carries the other grain, the donkey becomes injured. Pater, the renter is pater for paying for the damage. Although he did not obey the owner's instructions, he did not instruct it. He did not made the load lighter by carrying barley instead of wheat. Therefore, he's not at fault for the animals. It's the volume of the load. The load is enough barley to eat. Chayev, he is chayev to pay the volume, as mentioned above, as mentioned previously. Okay. The kama yosef the renter loads the animal with the agreed upon material. How much must he add to the load to be chayiv if the animal is injured? Simcha says in the name of Rabbi Meir, if he agreed to carry a lesach, he's chayiv if he adds sa'al the gamal, saw on the camel, shlosha kabil the chamor, or 3 kabil on the donkey. If he adds less than this amount, he's not chayiv to pay if the animal is injured. Kol ha'umanu shomrei sacher hein. This is Mishnah Vav. All craftsmen who work in their own homes or shops on other people's in their own homes or shops on other people's items are considered paid shomer for the items they're working on. So a tailor who's given a garment to mend is considered a paid shomer for the garment. Although the craftsman is not paid to wash the object, he receives benefit from it. He's entitled to hold the object in security and not return it until he's paid for his work. Since he benefits from having the object in his possession, he's considered a paid shomer. The kulan she'amru tol eshalcha v'havi maos. However, once any craftsman finishes his work and says to the owner of the item, take your own item and bring money to pay my fee, meaning that I will not hold your item as security, take it and then pay me. Shomer chilam, his status changes to that of an unpaid shomer since he's given up his right to hold the item as security and receives no benefit from it. There's also not chayiv if the object is lost or stolen, for all of his damage due to his negligence. Shomer leave esh malach. If someone says to his friend, "Watch my item for me today, and I watch your item for you tomorrow," Shomer sacher, each is considered a paid shomer for the other's item. Is in fact that because the fact that his friend watches his item is considered payment for watching his friend's item. You're doing me a favor, I do you a favor, and I'm going to call it even. So that's considered payment. Shmor ali v'amalecha v'amalo hanach v'fanai shomer chinam. One person says to another, watch my for me, and the other replies, put it down before me. He is considered an unpaid shomer. This statement indicates that he agrees to watch the item and he is now responsible for it. Mishnah Ches. Okay. Hovohu ala mashko, shomer sacher. So one lends someone against a security. I mean, the lender took an item from the borrower to guarantee the loan. The lender is considered a paid shomer for the item of security. Although the lender is not paid to watch the item, he benefits from having given the loan because at the time he gives the loan, he is punished from giving charity and thus saves money. Because of this benefit, he's considered a paid shomer for the item of security. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you lend someone money against security, the lender is considered an unpaid shomer for the security item, because the benefit of being exempt from charity is not enough to make a lender a paid shomer. However, if you lend someone produce against a security, he's considered a paid shomer for the security. In this case, the lender benefits by the loan, for his produce would eventually have rotted and he would not be repaid with fresh produce. Abishal says, Mutter Adam Lahaski Mashkono Shalani. A person who lent money to a poor man against a security is allowed to rent the poor man's security to others on the poor man's behalf without his knowledge. But the lender can set a rental fee, for the security item rented out, using the rental income to steadily deduct from the poor man's debt. Though a lender is forbidden to use an item he is holding for security, he is permitted to rent it out in this manner. If Neishu Commission considers as though he is returning lost property to the owner, by renting out the security item, the lender is giving the borrower money that would otherwise have been lost to him. Mishnah Ches. That's one for today. If someone was moving his friend's barrel from place to place and he tripped and broke it, whether he was an unpaid shomer or a paid shomer, I mean, he was not paid to move the barrel versus he was paid to move the barrel. Yishava, he swears he did not cause the barrel to break, and he is then exempt from paying for it. Rabbi Lezer says, I too heard my teachers that both this one and that one, the unpaid shomer and the paid shomer, they both swear, and then they part from paying for the barrel. The Tamua Ani Imicholin Zev Zeli Shava. However, I wonder how both these shomer can be put there simply by swearing that they were not negligent. After all, the paid shomer is obligated to pay for a damage, even if it's not the result of his negligence. Moreover, if he had been walking on a flat path, the shomer was indeed negligent, since he should have been more careful not to trip. In that case, even an unpaid shomer should be obligated to pay. Okay, thank you for joining us. We got through any technical issues, and we'll continue tomorrow with Perek Zayin. Have a wonderful day.